Peace be upon you. Every chapter of the Quran starts with an opening phrase,
Bismillahir-Rahmanir-Rahim,
which translates to in the name of God, most gracious, most merciful. Except for chapter 9, which lacks this opening phrase. Additionally, chapter 27 is the only chapter that has this phrase twice, one in its opening and one within the chapter text. Verse 30, you are encouraged to verify this for yourself. Let's assign each chapter that has this opening phrase once as the number 1. If it has this phrase twice, we assign it 2. If it doesn't have this phrase, we assign it 0. So chapter 1 has this phrase once, so it gets a 1. Chapter 2 also has this phrase, so it gets a 1. Chapter 3 also has this phrase, so it also gets a 1. Chapters 4 to 8 also have this phrase once each, so they each get assigned a 1. Chapter 9 does not have this phrase, so it gets a 0. Chapters 10 to 26 each have this phrase one time, so they each get a 1. Chapter 27 has this phrase twice, so it gets a 2. And the rest of the chapters, from 28 to 114 all have this opening phrase once each, so they each get a 1. When we stack all these numbers in a row, we get this massive 114-digit number. This number is a multiple of 7. 7 is the most common number that is mentioned in the Quran besides the number 1. Additionally, the often repeated verses the Quran refers to, the first chapter, has 7 verses within it, so the number 7 carries significance, but there is more significance beyond this finding. Now, if we write this number in the reverse, it also is remarkably a multiple of 7. The odds of this alone, both of those numbers when written forward and reverse would be a multiple of 7 is astounding. Interestingly, each of the natural numbers 1, 3, 5, 7, 8 in the quotient is repeated 19 times. We will discuss the significance of this number, 19, in future videos. Now, this number 15873 is staring at us in the quotient. It is the most repeated number in both of these calculations and it is appropriately separated with a 0. Regarding this repeated number, 15873, please verify for yourself that in the 15th chapter, verse number 87, the third word is none other than 7. 7 reflects the multiple of this massive number that produced this repeating number of 15873. Not only that, pay close attention to the verse. It says we gave you 7 of the pairs. There is a pair, 2, of multiples of 7 in these two large numbers. Now a question that comes up is why did God have a 0 and a 2 in that large number? Why not just have a large number of ones? Well, 1 1 1 1 1 1 1 1 1, etc. is a mathematical property when you write it backwards and forwards, so it is the same number, and thus we wouldn't witness the miracle. Additionally, if you put a 0 and a 2 randomly in place of some of the ones, rarely you would get a multiple of 7, and worse, rarely you will get 2 multiples of 7 when this number is written forwards and backwards. Thus including a 0 and a 2 points out to us that this is God's deliberate intention to put the 1s, 0s, and 2s there rather than just a fluke or coincidence. This is to show that this was intentional by God's calculation. He put the 0s and 2s there so we would know this is intentional by God and thus God made this miracle discoverable by us. There are no coincidences when it comes to the Quran. Every little detail is accounted for and known by God. Indeed, as the Quran says, there is not even a single leaf that falls from a tree that God doesn't know about. Every little detail encompasses God's knowledge. God takes everything into account. But hold on. If you notice in this large number, there is an anomaly. It does not always repeat 15873. Sometimes there are 2 8s in a row after the 15. 1588, highlighted above. Interestingly, this number 88 is the only time any 2 digits are repeated in a row within this massive number. Additionally, the number 8 within 88 is the 15th occurrence of the number 8 when counting from the long end of either number. Also it is preceded by 15 and the quotient above. Recall that before, we had chapter 1587 being significant corresponding to verse 1587. For 1588, verse 1588 is basically the same context as verse 1587 since it comes right after. But what if we take verse 88, 15? Could this verse be significant? As it turns out, verse 88, 15 mentions something being lined up or arranged in order, just as we lined up and arranged in order the ones, twos and zeros based on the occurrences of the opening phrase in each of their respective chapters. Another anomaly in this large quotient is the location in which the number 8 does not exist. We have a 1573 instead of a 15873. Now, here is why we expect something significant about 1573, because when we dissected this quotient, with 15873, we found a highly relevant verse, chapter 15, verse 87. Word 3 that mentioned 7 pairs corresponding to the 2 multiples of 7 we have above. Then, we found an anomaly in that large number, 2 8s mentioned in a row doubly associated with the number 15. We found verse 88, 15 mentioning a lineup of something, which happens to correspond to this lineup of the zeros, 1s and 2s above, and now we find the second anomaly in 1573 also being unique in both of those quotients. So we expect something with respect to a Quran verse that is significant. It only makes sense since everything else was coded for. What is the code here for 1573? As it turns out, when God mentions a miracle or sign in the Quran, it is often juxtaposed with the disbelievers' hand-waved claim that this is all just magic or sleight of hand, i.e. they prefer any other explanation other than God. An example you are familiar with is the moon landing video that we had recently made, and how it mentions disbelievers claiming this miracle was magic right after observing that miracle. So with respect to this anomalous number above, 1573, if we apply a similar rule to 1588 and how it corresponds to verse 88, 15, could it be that 1573 corresponds to 37, 15 which mentions denial of this miracle and hand-waving it as insignificant? If you like this video, please like and subscribe for future videos. Join our Discord, link in description, where we have 24/7 live conversations. Please drop by, ask any questions or leave any comments. We welcome new members of all backgrounds or religious beliefs. We also have a podcast, Quran Talk, and a Quran study app, link in description, you can download. Thanks for watching.